Let's talk matchups. Number one, Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary against the Packers OTs. I think Taylor Moton's a really good player. I think he's really underrated. I've liked him since day one. He's a leader on this team. Fundamentally, he's very sound. It'll be a good matchup with him and Rashawn Gary. I just think he's a very, very strong player. Icky's a superior athlete lacking technical work, and he doesn't play grounded, which means he doesn't have a great relationship with the ground right now. And Bryce Young feels pressure early. So you're going to get him heated up if we can bull rush, if we can inside move, all these things that are kind of available, especially on that left side, if Icky's having a bad technical day. Usually the second guy gets home with Bryce. Usually when you're watching a lot of this stuff and there's a sack or there's a heavy pressure knockdown, it's the second guy. He feels the first guy, escapes second guy because his eyes don't necessarily go down as fast as some other quarterbacks who are maybe more mature in this league. I think this is just a matchup to watch, and if you get there, you have to be relentless. The second guy is going to make a play. Number two, the Packers right guard, whoever it may be, versus Derek Brown. And I said it before. Chris Limson's one of the best in the game. He had a really good game against Chris. I watch the Panthers all the time. This is a very, very good player. And if this turns into a tryout at right guard and they're going to rotate guys around and there's not rhythm and you better get a lot of teams in there if that's the case, because I think Derek is a really, really good player that he's going to have that handful of plays that could impact the game. He's not in every down. Like, he's not going to get you every time and lull you to sleep. Like, he's not that guy. He's not John Randall. Okay. But he will be really explosive for 2 or 3 plays in a row. And man, if you don't have your chin strap buckled up real tight, it's a problem. And then the third one, just because it's the theme of the week, Joe Barry versus Thomas Brown. Ever since Frank Reich was fired, Thomas has a little more say. I mean, you got to remember, Thomas was hired. Then Frank took over the play calling duties, and he gave him back. Then he took him back, and it was this whole drama down there. And so he's doing a better job of creating his own offense. He's using the RPO game. He's moving towards kind of a more of a downhill, under center, pistol looks to, I think, help this offensive line, but also help this quarterback. Highlights play action pass a little bit more. So how do we turn this into a third down drop back passing game? That's what you want out of Bryce Young. You want him to try to get to his second, third, fourth read. You want to keep him in the pocket. Like, he's not as comfortable there. So how do we get there? You have to be able to stop the under center run, the pistol run, and the under center play action pass early. Be a good chess match there. Do you want to bring extra? Do you want to crowd the box? Do you want to put it all on Bryce Young and play single safety the entire time? The answer for me is yes, but then they might spread him out and go empty like they did last week, and Baker looked like a genius. Keys to victory, stopping the run. Packers can play a physical brand of football, and the key for me is creating one-on-ones. Now I'm talking about our defense. One-on-ones at the line of scrimmage with either Icky or really their tight ends. But you want to create one-on-one opportunities, and that means you have to be attacking at the line of scrimmage when you get your run keys. And wherever, if you're the linebacker, you find the guy who's giving up the information all the time. There's always a player on the offensive line these days that's giving up intel. Like, is it a keeper? Is he downhill running? Like, by his stance, by his demeanor, where his eyes go, you got to find it and find it early if you don't have it on tape already. Explosive plays, number 2. I think this defense is good enough to kind of grind you down physically. Like, if you give them a sense that you can't run the football, if you give them a sense that you can't do it, if you get Brian Burns jumping around and getting excited, Derek Brown celebrating, Frank Lavu rushing the passer and making plays in Carolina, you get the crowd behind. If the crowd stays past the second quarter, like, it's a good defense. So they have difference makers at key positions. And when you have that, the Packers have to exploit some of those rotations that we looked at from the secondary, some of the eyes in the backfield. Like, you have opportunities for big plays. There's opportunities on keepers for big plays if you can take care of the defensive end. You have to take advantage this week and really get some explosive, get some easy yards. Like, you just need a couple chunk yards. You don't want to grind it out for 5 yards at a time versus this team. And the third thing is just take the gimmies. offensively and defensively, this is a 2-win football team. The Packers roster from top to bottom is better. The offense is much better. So our offense, should be able to put 20 points up against this defense, and there's no way that this Carolina Panthers offense should score more than their season average of 14.7 points against our defense. There's just no way that should happen because they just don't have the togetherness at this point, okay? I'm not saying they don't have the talent. I'm just saying they're not there. They don't understand what their playbook is yet. So roster to roster, you got to go with the better team here. That's why the Packers are a 5-point favorite. This is going to be a good game. Now, I do have some questions from some listeners. I want to get to a couple of them. I know I haven't left myself a lot of time. How much of the defensive woes, percentage-wise, do you believe is coaching versus player versus scheme? We talked about that already. I think it's hard to put a percentage on it. Hi, Mike. How do you grade Walker's progress at left tackle? Arguably the most critical player for Love's improvement. Okay, so I will say this. I said this yesterday on a show. Jenkins, Zach Tom. That's what you're building your offensive line around. You have to make a decision on, are you prioritizing? Do you think that Josh Myers has played well enough that he's your center for the next 7 years? And I want you to look at it from a 7-year. Centers can be around for a long time. So rest of this contract, next contract. Is he the guy? Is he pointed in the direction from a communication standpoint? He's certainly playing better than he was at the beginning of the season. Is he the guy that you want to lead this offensive line into the end of the 2020s? If the answer is yes, I think you go get a high price left tackle because David Bakhtiari is not going to be here anymore. And for me, it's a premium position on a team with a young quarterback that you're trying to develop that allows you to do so many different things. And I want a guy and there's not a lot of them, but you want a guy that's, just as good in the run game as he is in the pass game. And there's not a lot of them. So if it's a draft guy, if it's a trade guy, I at least look at that. And it's not that Rasheed Walker's not done a job. I think you have to have standout players at certain positions. And for us, it could be Zach. Zach Tom could turn into just an absolute standout right tackle. And maybe that's all we need. Maybe that's the guy. Elgin Jenkins is more than a solid left guard. I still don't see who that guy on this team is that's like a physically dominant, demeanor dominant guy. And if it's got to be, those two are here. Now it's got to be the center. It's got to be the left tackle. You got to make a decision. And again, they might both be in the room. And we're just waiting for them to develop. And you have to be there every day and see what's going on in order to understand that. Like what you see on game day is just part of the story. So it's a good question, but I think he's played much better. I think the progress is there. It's tangible. But I always really like I like to have a guy who's a demeanor guy somewhere. And if it can be it's Trent Williams, if it can be your best player too, that's not a bad thing. Which Panthers players do the Packers need to game plan for with O&D? I think I hit that. One of the guys was talking about Rashawn Gary last night. And my thing with Rashawn is he's such a good player. And I think he's got everything you want. He's homegrown. He works his ass off. You could tell he just works. He's quiet. He doesn't cause any trouble. He's a good locker room guy. He's everything you want, and he's productive. I've said this a million times. If you get him to rush, if you help him out with some tips on rushing, as far as like quarterback leverage and understanding like where to stop going upfield and all that stuff, you're going to be that much more effective, and you're going to have probably 5 more sacks a year. I mean, because I think he's that kind of talent. But when you start thinking about, is a guy worth it? Is a guy not worth it? You use any player. It's what are you going to do instead? what's your next? What's your like? Are you going to find a guy for $100 million that's as good as he is? I don't think so. You know. And then it goes with like Lucas Van Ness. Lucas Van Ness is a 13th pick in the draft, and people said, why are you surprised by that pick? Well, because if I list the last 5 or 6 or 7, 13 picks in the draft, they're all day one starters. They're all kind of, even if they don't have numbers, they're if they're defensive guys, like Deron Payne's one of those guys. Hassan Reddick's one of those guys. Laramie Tunzel was one of those guys, offensive left tackle, arguably the best pass blocking left tackle in the league. So those guys are all day one players, and so when you have that guy, it has nothing. It's not a narrative on his ceiling. It's just like when you pick a guy at that premium pick, I feel like you have to get day one production, and I don't count that. I'm counting that maybe more as like snaps and experience. Like here's a guy who is going to play behind Rashad Preston when he comes in. Or if you move him to a D tackle position, he's play behind Kenny. Like, there's nowhere where he can start on the team on day one. That was my, I guess, head scratching moment. It has nothing to do with his ability. It has more to do with like fit wise, who can come in today and just be a dog for the next 10 years. Right now, he could be, maybe year 3. He's like, I always bring him up to Aaron Cam in Iowa. Maybe turns into Aaron Cam, and you're like, oh my God, like this guy's Packers Hall of Famer. It's unbelievable. And hopefully that's the case, right? But again, at that pick, Aaron was like a 5th round pick, right? So anyway, this will be a good game this weekend. Unfortunately, it's going to probably be 5 points is probably spot on. And, what you would like to see is a get right game for the Green Bay Packers. I think that's the biggest thing. You watch this when you watch this stuff with us on tape here. I think it's obvious that they're still trying to find their identity on the offensive side of football. I do like their defense, but it's not like they don't give up plays. And so there is an opportunity here for Green Bay. It's a get right game for sure. So guys, enjoy the week. If you're enjoying the show, please hit that subscribe button, like, rate, and review us. I know I ranted at the beginning, but it's Christmas time. That's what we do, right? Have a good weekend, guys.